Penn State wrestling just broke historic records, won an NCAA title, had 4 individual champions, and with what they have coming back, next year's team could honestly be even better.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Penn State wrestling set records in 2023, 2024, and just a year later, that same Penn State wrestling team could not only do that again, but be even better than the year before. This is Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm your host, Zach Seiko, and thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. The voice of Penn State wrestling is back. Jeff Byers to follow up the season recap, the official season recap. But now you got to look towards the future. So this 2024-25 lineup could actually be even better. They could reset those records that the previous team did, but it's all dependent on who returns. So we'll discuss what the starting lineup looks like. But Jeff, let's begin with that idea of who's returning, where could they be, and then we'll actually map out the starting lineup itself. But Carter Starocci, Bo Bartlett, and Greg Kirkfleet are the obvious ones here. They all do have eligibility, and I kind of want a clarification on Carter's eligibility because the fact that he can come back for a 5th season here. But starting with that, those guys, if they come back, and then you add on top of Levi Haynes, right? Tyler Kasak, the return of Shane Van Ness, right? All these talented wrestlers from a team that set records, aside from Aaron Brooks and Bernie Truax, would hypothetically all come back here. And I think that team will be better than the previous one.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly going to be a loaded team. I don't know whether or not it'll be better. I mean, it's certainly, I think, within the realm of possibility. You know, and it's a nice problem to have for sure, admittedly, but it's still a problem, which is, you know, you do only have 10 starting spots available for your wrestlers. And when you look at the guys that are coming in, the guys that redshirted this year and the returners, there's probably about 16, 17 guys that you're like, oh, well, there's a surefire starter in any program in the country. So how they go about, you know, the roster management is going to be a challenge here in the coming years for this coaching staff. And, you know, there's a lot of variables that I don't know, and I don't know that anybody, including the coaches, know right now in terms of how this is going to shake out for next season. And yeah, you start with who of the 3 that you mentioned are coming back. All 3, none of the 3. It seems pretty much a certainty that Bo Bartlett is coming back, and I think would stay at 141. You know, Levi Haynes is a guy, he'll be back, obviously, but I don't know where he necessarily fits in the lineup. I think 157 was a pull for him. I'm not sure that 157 is a realistic weight for him to compete next season. I think much the same thing with Braden Davis. You know, Tyler Kasak started the season at 141. I think there's no doubt he was a true 149-pounder here at the end of the year. You know, a lot of these guys have redshirt options available to them.
Yes.
If they and the coaches want to take advantage of that. Obviously, Carter Starocci and Greg Kirkfleet, I mean, if you, as absurd as it is, Starocci is the one that I think from a program standpoint, you're more like, yeah, it's okay if he moves on because you have 3 or 4, I think, really strong, viable options there. You know, maybe not Starocci at this point of his career good, but all really, really good, like national title contending type of good. Whereas Greg Kirkfleet, you know, I think, you know, you may have Mirasola move up to heavyweight, but again, it'd be a true freshman making a transition up a weight class. Whereas if Kirkfleet does come back, I mean, it obviously solidifies that you at least have a title contender there at heavyweight. So I think if Kerkvliet comes back, probably Penn State feels really good, if not settled on who all's going where, but feels really good about the lineup that it'll be able to put out there next season.
Jeff, there's also this element of Carter Starocci's eligibility. And this is, I guess, I don't know if this has been posed by anybody else, but how he can actually, so this is for me personally. I'm asking personally for a kindergarten explanation of why Carter can wrestle for a 5th title, because for Aaron Brooks, it makes sense that he was able to come back for another season because of the COVID eligibility, because his 2020 season was taken away when the NCAA tournament was canceled. But Carter wrestled in the 21 season, the 21 tournament, the 22 tournament, the 23 tournament, the 24 tournament. So there's his 4 years. How is he actually eligible to come back for a 5th NCAA title run?
Yeah, it's the 2021 season that the NCAA looks at as the COVID season.
Okay.
And it's just, it was a very limited dual schedule that year. And even though there was an NCAA tournament, right? And that's, to me, like, I think the NCAA got it wrong because, again, a guy like Vincenzo Joseph, who never got that opportunity to compete in a 4th NCAA tournament, what the NCAA or the wrestling folks decided, but it was the NCAA decision ultimately, but it was that you got to compete in the season in 2020. So they looked at that as a full season, even though what everybody considers to be the ultimate goal, the NCAA tournament, wasn't contested. It was the only thing that wasn't contested that year. The next year, Penn State had, I think it was 6 dual meets, but it was just conference duels, no fans allowed type thing. And then the NCAA tournament, and again, same thing, very limited fans. So that is the year that the NCAA is looking at and saying, yes, we give you an extra year as a result of that. Whether you think that's right or wrong, and again, I think it's wrong, but I certainly don't fault any wrestler for taking advantage of it. I just think the NCAA got that wrong by not allowing a guy like Vincenzo Joseph to get an opportunity at a 4th NCAA tournament, and then allowing a bunch of these guys to get a crack at a 5th.
That's a pretty straightforward explanation because, like I said, looking at it, Carter does wrestle in 4 postseasons, but yes, when the NCAA views it as, well, this was our COVID season, not the one that we did finish, but we canceled the tournament. That is, yes. Okay. Now that makes a little more sense to me why Carter can do this. Now, what could this Penn State lineup look like in 2024, 2025? That's coming up next here on Locked On Nittany Lions. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a 1 seed to advance, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines, totals. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to its peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks to exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? You have to turn down the volume because of all of that shouting? make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all of the screaming, without all the shouting. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, news, and it's streaming 24/7 on YouTube and on the free Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Like this episode, share it with friends and family. Let us know in the comments what you think about Penn State's starting lineup conundrum for 2024-2025. And you want to keep up with Jeff. He does a daily talk show during the week over on Fox Sports 98.7 FM. You can stream it at 987thefox.com. You started to tease it a little bit how this lineup would be constructed, and let's look at that a little more closely. But it's hard not to think that Penn State I think they will be better because you return outside of Truax and Aaron Brooks, right? And those are really talented wrestlers. But hypothetically, you have 8 NCAA qualifiers coming back. You have all but 6 of the All-Americans returning, and then 3, you have 5 of the finalists, and then 3 of the national champions as well. And then that, Greg Kirkfleet's going to get better, right? Carter Starachi would be better. Tyler Case, right? All of them will improve from what they did a season ago. So that's why it's hard when you're losing 1 or 2 wrestlers here, and then the wrestlers that you mentioned that would replace them hypothetically, it's hard not to think that next year's lineup would actually be even better and could reset some of those points records.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of things that it's presuming, and I understand Penn State fans at this point do presume that guys are just automatically going to get better from one year to the next. And I mean, I certainly expect that will be the case, but these guys do have to get back and enjoy the grind in the room that gets you to be able to jump levels from one season to the next. And I think there's, certainly some specific things that across the board, the wrestlers that return will need to work on to try to take that next step and either become more dominant or become a guy that can go out and win a title next season. Again, to me, the biggest hurdle to trying to figure out what the lineup is going to look like is figuring out what the weight classes for some of these guys are going to be. Yep. Again, I'm not sitting here as we sit here today. I'm not telling you that no way Levi Haynes gets to 157 next year, or no way Braden Davis gets to 125 next year. But I'm saying I don't think either of those are a certainty. I know both of those guys were pulling some weight, and I think both are growing. Does a Luke Lillidahl, who obviously has all kinds of high expectations, I don't know if he can hold 25. Maybe he can, and it's not a problem. I'm just saying, until he gets in here, I don't know. I don't know where his weight management is and how realistic it would be for him to be able to hold up, under the grind of a college wrestling season and make that 125-pound weight class. Again, first you got to figure out who all is coming back, where they fit in the lineup. And then again, same thing with, can some of those guys that we're talking about contending at 174, could one of them move up to 184 and make that transition fairly easily, whether it's, like a Zach Ryder that has been training with the Penn State Wrestling Club and, certainly has a very high ceiling, and Alex Facundo, who took a red shirt, an Olympic red shirt this year. Again, I think a lot of those guys right now are projecting it at like 174, whereas, you've just got to figure that out. And it's got to be the wrestlers and the coaches. Hey, do you want to make this move up? Do you think you can really contend there? Does a Josh Barr, does he want to go 97? Can Mirasola come in and go 97? Can he maintain 97? So they are going to have great options, and they are going to have great wrestlers in the lineup. But it's interesting too, Zach, because I think, fans maybe are like, well, yeah, Tyler Casack just redshirt him next year and Van Ness is back. Well, I'm not sure Tyler wants to redshirt. Now, it may be whether you want to or not. Are you beating out Van Ness and Haynes? And same thing, if Haynes, if Mitchell Messenbrink doesn't want to get down to 57 and flip-flop with Haynes, do you have those two wrestle off and the loser's just out of the lineup? I mean, and these are the things that, again, are yet to be determined for next season. The two things we do know, I think, going into next year is that this will be a formidable team, and I think Penn State will be the favorite pretty much no matter what comes from the lineup this year. And secondly, you are going to have some elite wrestlers who will not be in the lineup next year. Now, I've had a bunch of people ask me since Nationals, and it's different names, but it's, hey, do you think this guy's transferring? Can you see any way this guy doesn't transfer? Do I think it is possible, bordering on very likely, that some of these guys will transfer over the next year or two? Yes, because, again, you're talking about elite caliber wrestlers, guys that can probably become national title contenders who are not going to be able to make the starting lineup at Penn State. So, yes, is it possible that some of these guys leave the program? Of course, that is certainly possible, and maybe even likely. But I think you just have to kind of wait and see how everything plays out, what different guys are thinking in terms of the red shirt possibilities, in terms of the moving up a weight class or maintaining. Again, to me, there are just so many variables right now. And I think, from a coaching perspective, while you always have an eye on the next year and really the next 5 years, right? Like the coaches are always, there's always that 5-year plan. You're looking at the recruiting cycle. You're looking at what you're projecting guys to be, but there's always variables. Again, guys that grow that you're not expecting to grow, guys that maybe don't grow that you're thinking are going to grow when you're trying to make projections for your lineup. And you do have Olympic redshirt options, regular redshirt options, all of these things available. So again, it's that roster management, and it's not that the coaches just sit and, all right, well, these are the guys that are going to redshirt. Like, it's conversations. Are you okay with this? This is our long-term plan. This is where we see you, developing into and fitting in the future. And having that ongoing discussion and dialogue with all of these guys. So I think it's there's just a ton of moving parts right now. And with the Olympic trials coming up, again, I don't know that a lot of this is necessarily going to be settled, at least for another month or so. And publicly, we may not know about it, until we get to the start of next season.
When you look at next season's lineup, Jeff, there's, I don't want to say uncertainty. So let's frame it this way. There's a log jam potentially at 125, 133, 141, 149, 157, 165, 174, 184, 197. Essentially, if Greg Kirkley comes back as the heavyweight, that is the only one where you can say, yep, I know this starter at the 285 spot. Everybody else, Penn State does not know who's going to be the starter from 125 to 197 at this point in time here as we finish up March and go into April.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. And there may be people, if you're just tuning in, it's like, well, come on, Levi and Mitchell are going to be there, and you don't. And the reason, again, is there. I think we got to wait and see how these guys. Levi is growing a little bit, and 157 was a pull for him. And again, I'm not sitting here telling you he won't be at 157 again next year. I'm telling you, I don't think it's a certainty. Same thing with Braden Davis at 125. I think Bo Bartlett, I don't know that I'd necessarily say lock it in 100% guaranteed, but I feel very confident, as you said, if Kirkley comes back, that's your heavyweight, and I think Bo Bartlett is your 41-pounder. Everywhere else, I think there are some questions. I think Nagao is likely, to be your 33-pounder. But they've got a lot of things that they have to figure out here. And again, they have a lot of great options. So it's not a situation where like, oh boy, Penn State's really going to be hurting it this
Go to
way.
the portal. Yeah, they're all here in house.
Yeah, but it's, you know, who actually emerges as the starter and where they emerge in that starting lineup, I think is very uncertain right now.
The Penn State wrestling season, yes, the regular season and the postseason have come to a close, but a lot of these guys are going to be wrestling in less than a month at the Bryce Jordan Center for the Olympic trials. We're going to discuss that and what's going to go down at the Bryce Jordan Center coming up next on Locked On Nittany Lions. Today's episode is also brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire, and it gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidates within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing a lot of different hats and might not have the time or the resources to hire. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker. 2.5 million, yes, that is right. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And remember, if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. If you want to keep up with what Jeff does outside of wrestling coverage, you can listen to his daily morning talk show during the week, Monday through Friday, on Fox Sports 98.7 FM. You can stream it at 987thefox.com. Airs live 8 to 10 a.m. every single weekday. And in this final segment, looking ahead to the Olympic trials. So yes, the Penn State wrestling season is finished, but a lot of these Penn State wrestlers are just moving on. You know, right? Carter Starocci doesn't get a break. He doesn't get to rest the leg. He has to go back and train for the Olympic trials that are held in the Bryce Jordan Center, April 19th and April 20th. And Jeff, just getting a big overview of this because there's going to be so much talent. Present Penn State wrestlers, former Penn State wrestlers are going to be competing here. The NCAA champions are already qualified, but then everybody else has to sort it out here. And I look at one class in particular, and that 74-kilogram class is absolutely loaded with present and past Penn State talent, but just wrestling talent in general.
Yeah, I got to tell you, Zach, I'm excited to watch the trials, but it is really hard to try to project where some of these guys are going to finish at their respective weight classes and kind of how this thing is ultimately going to shake out.
So just to put it in perspective, I mean, looking at this, I could go through every single weight class and say, you know, hey, who's going to be wrestling at the Bryce Jordan Center in late April here? But look at this 74-kilogram weight class. Jordan Burroughs, Mitchell Messenbrink, Keegan O'Toole, Jason Nolf, Quincy Monday, Alex Marinelli, Alex Facundo, Jarrett Jacques, Tyler Berger, Levi Haynes, David Carr, Chance Marsteller, Carter Starocci, and that's just 74 kilograms. Then you go to 86, and David Taylor's already into Final X, and Kyle Dake is already into Final X at 74 kilograms. And then here's 86, Aaron Brooks, Trent Hidley, Mark Hall, Maxine, Connor Mirasola, Parker Kakaisen. There is so much talent in just these weight classes alone. It's going to make for fire. There will be fireworks at the Bryce Jordan Center, Jeff.
That is for sure. Now, it's going to be great wrestling, and you know, it is one of those things, Zach, where again, to me, it is. There's a couple of things that come to my mind when I look at this. One is, you know, I think the overall depth in U.S. wrestling is at an all-time high. I think it's why what Penn State has done at the NCAA level is even more astounding, because I think there are more great coaches, more great college-ready wrestlers coming out of high school than ever before. And really, I think with the exception of Penn State, there's more parity in college wrestling than ever before. Again, there were, what was it? I think the nine teams bunched up behind Penn State, all finished like within 12 points or something of each other at the NCAA tournament. Well, that's crazy that you have that many teams that are that tightly bunched together. But again, I think it speaks to the just the overall depth right now in the United States, both folk style and freestyle wrestling.
Yes.
But on the world stage too, like the fact that there are not 10 weight classes at the Olympics is absurd. And that is, to me, shameful by the IOC. They ought to be embarrassed by that. If anything, you ought to be adding weight classes for the Olympic Games when you look at all of the talent that's there throughout the world. We should be going to 12 weight classes, not shrinking it from 10 to 6. But yes, because they are doing that, the number of high caliber elite wrestlers at each of these weight classes. And again, it's not just in the United States, but certainly here in the United States. I mean, at every weight class, I would argue you have at least 3 to 5 wrestlers that are capable of going out and competing and probably beating just about anybody in the world on a given day.
And it will all be at Penn State's Bryce Jordan Center in 4 sessions, April 19th and April 20th, to see not only the Penn State wrestlers compete, but just some of the best in the country and in the world too. And if you're a wrestling fan, that's you said the NCAA tournament was Christmas. That's another extension of it. Yeah,
no doubt. Yeah, it is. It'll be again a whole lot of fun if you're a wrestling fan. It is as you go through the names there, Zach. I mean, it really is. It's a who's who in terms of a showcase for wrestling here in the United States. And I mean, there's all kinds of matchups and potential matchups that I think fans are circling. It's wow, I got to see that one. Oh, I got to see that one. Oh, this one could happen. Again, a lot of fun if you're a wrestling fan. And I think, certainly to have the opportunity to see all of these guys in your own backyard here, if you're a Penn State fan, makes it extra special.
And it will certainly be a little conflicting there with the friendly fire when a Penn State wrestler, both current and past, have to go up against one another in these competitions. But it will all unfold, like I said, April 19th, April 20th of this year. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. I want to give a big, Jeff, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming onto these podcasts, onto these shows to talk Penn State wrestling, something that you're obviously very passionate about, but giving me time out of your busy schedule on top of what you do with Fox Sports Radio, 98.7 FM, which I encourage people to go check out, but to shed some light on what Penn State wrestling was able to do over the course of the season, and then to recap it all here in this show. So just thank you. I am extremely grateful, and I know that the listeners of this show, the viewers of the show, are as well.
No, my pleasure. Thanks, Zach.
And remember, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on YouTube and the free Fire TV channels app.